What if Gon joined the Phantom Troupe? Because he absolutely had the opportunity to. And actually, his reason for not joining was something along the lines of, "I'll never become a kill-murdering guy man like you degenerates." Then cut to the Chimera Antark, and Gon is threatening to kill-murder an innocent girl for the sake of kite. I honestly think that Nobunaga was on the money when he assessed Gon as a candidate. There is a world where this definitely could have worked, and we are going to explore it. The premise here is quite simple. Nobunaga wants a friend. After Uvagin was killed by a wrathful blonde and buried in a hole, there was an emotional gap to be filled in Nobunaga's life. He was on the dead best friend equivalent of a rebound, and so Nobunaga took a bit of a liking towards Gon, as many do. Be they assassins, less formal assassins, or even serial killing battle clowns. Gon is like a scum and villainy magnet. But in this case, what Nobunaga really liked about Gon was his brutal and simplistic honesty. And it's actually Shizuku who puts these words into feelings in chapter 93 when she equates both Gon and Uvagin as people who wears his heart on his sleeve, flies off the handle, shows amazing strength when it's for another person. And after a manly bout of arm wrestling against an 11-year-old child, Nobunaga said, "Look kid, why don't you join the spiders? You could team up with me, Nobunaga." To which Gon replies, "No thanks, I'd rather die than join you." And Nobunaga smugly retorts, "Oh, I'm hurt." But honestly, I think he is hurt. And it's very much like the meme of that guy angrily crying under the happy face mask. Nobunaga is pretty determined though. He vows to non-consensually incorporate Gon into the Phantom Troupe. And while Fink says that he doesn't think that Corolla would go for that idea, I kinda disagree. Becoming a troupe member seems to be far less of an exclusive process than we thought, particularly with just how easily and casually Kaluto gained his membership, as well as Ilumi Zoldik's temporary spot. And recent chapters very much reinforced to me that Gon probably would have been accepted, because the Phantom Troupe do have empathy for Nen using children, because that's the thing it is they all once were. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go ahead and play Narrative God, and instead of Gon saying no thanks, he's going to say yes please, and instead of I'd rather die than join you, Gon is going to say I'd rather join you than die. However, for the sake of some sort of reasonability, we're gonna have Gon join the troupe after York New City, because even in a hypothetical, I just don't see there being any world where he betrays Kurapika at this point in the story. However, after the spider business is done, Gon is all about networking, and part of his agreement for joining may even be that the troupe assist him in finding Jing. Now, second big change, Killua will also be joining the troupe, primarily because he's an 11-year-old boy who wants to stay with his best friend. And given that the troupe have let two Zoldiks, one younger than Killua, very casually join, I see this as being even less of a problem than Gon's membership. In fact, Gon may be the price that Crawler was willing to pay to have Killua aboard. That's the head though. What do the legs of the spider think? Why would they so readily accept these kids? Well, by this point, the original troupe members have Hakunoda's memories, and she was grateful to the two of them before she died, so there's already an empathetic link with the original troupe members. Meanwhile, the later candidates like Shizuku, Benolanov, and Cortopia all extremely chill and easygoing. So with this in mind, Gon will become Spider number 11, taking Uvagin's spot, and Killua will take on the mantle of Spider number 8. 8 being the unknown troupe member who was killed by Silver Zoldyck, so it's nice and thematically appropriate. And funnily enough, from here, the series plays out kind of as we know it, because both Gon and the Phantom Troupe are locked onto the same destination, being Greed Island. Just instead of going through Batera's selection process, the Phantom Troupe will simply steal as many copies as required, giving Gon and Killua access that way. Our first big problem though is that with the troupe, Gon and Killua are not going to train with Bisky, which is a massive part of their development. However, they do have another mentor. Nobunaga will become their mentor in Bisky's place because he is the designated babysitter as the one who nominated them. And it's really in his best interest to train Gon and, by association, Killua, so that he can re-establish his best friend dynamic. And Nobunaga's teachings may be much less formal than Bisky's, but he is still a world-class Nen master. And yeah, the boys will progress much more slowly because they don't have Bisky's magical massage to fast track, but it's not like we're going anywhere anytime soon. The Greed Island arc does not end until the game is over, and without Gon, Killua, and Hisoka, nobody is going to beat Razor to attain Plot of Beach. And in this world, the dodgeball match looks very different, because what we now end up with is Razor versus the Phantom Troupe. They'll acquire as many copies of the game as they need to fill this team. In fact, canonically, each and every living troupe member did enter Greed Island along with Hisoka, and when we include Gon and Killua, that gives us a group of 13 players. So they only need 2 more to complete the 15-person team, which could easily be achieved by threatening other random players into joining them, kind of like how Feitan threatened the Blackwell passengers to step through the Nen doorway. The troupe also have a vested interest in completing the game. Finks and Feitan showed a competitive curiosity towards the game in general, and it's also worthwhile because they would be able to take a prize from the game. So like most of what they do, this is a profitable endeavor. And the dodgeball itself, well, it goes very differently. Razor is of course a powerhouse, but he is now facing the full might and full intelligence of the Phantom Troupe. So Plot of Beach is easily acquired, and if Genthru is still going to decide to be a problem, then he'll be wiped out with relative ease as well. In fact, beating Genthru may even be a request from Abengane in exchange for his assistance in lifting Chrollo's Nen curse. Either way, Gon can then complete the quiz and win the game so that we can select our prize. Gon needs 2 card slots to make an accompany, which leaves 1 open for the rest of the troop. And honestly, Bisky's choice of Blue Planet may not be such a terrible idea because it could sell for quite a bit of cash money. However, I think there is a much more useful card for the troop, and that card is Sword of Truth, the ability of which is splits into anything and anyone deceitful. In trials, it's a criminal's worst nightmare. The sword will shatter when used to cut something true, but will regenerate if stored in its scabbard for 1 day. It essentially fills Pakunoda's former role as a lie detector, so it's a very useful interrogation item. And really, it's either that or Doyen's virility pills, which states that a certain part of your anatomy will get very frisky. Both endurance and frequency are enhanced. 1 vial contains 500 pills, so that card creates a more euphemistic sword. I should also note that Kalato still joins the troop and fills the number 4 slot. His motives are still unknown, but if they're to do with Killua, then joining the troop is still very, if not more, acceptable. And if it's another brother, then same thing, meaning that the troop now have 3 children to take care of. Gon and Killua then use a company, but they themselves are accompanied by Nobunaga, as he is their designated babysitter, so he'll end up meeting Kite with the 2 of them. They share some stories, have some laughs, haha, but in this world, Gon has no reason to stay with Kite, because Gon and Killua have this habit of mentor hopping from your wings to your biscuits to your kites. But since they still have a mentor with Nobunaga and an obligation to the troop, there is no reason to take time off to study insects with Kite. So they take their leave and become entirely irrelevant to the events of the Chimera Ant arc. And it's entirely possible that due to this, Kite does not die in his encounter with Pito. The reason why he was condemned to a state of death was a momentary lapse in concentration because of Gon. So he does have a chance of surviving and perhaps even going on to join the extermination team in place of Gon and Killua. Alright, one tricky thing now. In this world, Killua probably doesn't remove Illumi's needle. This occurred in a very desperate situation to protect Gon, which is an opportunity that will not arise, at least not at this point in the story. And while certain troop members, like perhaps say your Shalnarks, may notice Killua's needle, I think they know better than to try and mess with it. And as for the ants themselves, well, I think this arc has a very similar conclusion, albeit with a much higher death toll. Meruem and his royal guard were all destined to die during the palace invasion, because even without Gon, Pito would have come with Yuppie and Shiapoof to Meruem after his fight with Netero and become poisoned. In fact, someone could even kill Pito whilst healing Komugi. Pito was completely defenseless there. However, the biggest differences are the losses on our side. Gon and Killua were the reason why Meliaron and Icalgo were recruited, the former of which being especially integral to survival, meaning that Knuckles, Shoot, and Moral have a drastically increased chance of dying during the invasion. In fact, the whole affair could end with a double KO, the invasion team killing Meruem and the Royal Guard, but they all die as well. And I suppose the exciting thing is that we now live in a world where the full potential of adult Gon may be realized in a few short decades, because he doesn't lose Nen. He just keeps steadily improving until he becomes undoubtedly one of the most powerful Nen users in the world. Meanwhile, his involvement in the Ant arc is either relegated to fighting Zazan's squad at Meteor City, or he may not be involved at all. Notably, Nobunaga didn't go with the troop because he had his own assignment somewhere else, so Gon and Killua may very well tag along to be part of whatever that was. However, this change has a pretty significant global impact, because Gon doesn't lose Nen, which means that we don't need Alaka to heal him, so she's going to stay locked up, and as a result, Leorio has no reason to accidentally run for association chairman, and this entire arc is a very straightforward voting affair. I do think that Cheadle still ends up as the chairman, because whoever wins, be it Pariston or Jing, they're both going to resign, because they have their own dark continental priorities. The bigger question is, does Gon take this opportunity to meet Jing? It's a very public election, and the troop aren't massively busy at this moment, so let's say he does. That might be a bit of a problem, because Gon may have wanted to travel with Jing if he still had Nen, but in this world, he's part of the troop. And whilst getting into the troop might be shockingly easy, leaving the troop is another matter. Knowing Jing, I think he would use the troop as an excuse to continue not being a parent and convince Gon that he still has responsibilities elsewhere, which means that Gon is going to continue into the succession war. Hisoka vs. Chrollo plays out exactly as is. Afterward, Shalnark and Cortopi meet their demise, and Hisoka vows to kill the entire troop, except this time that list contains Gon and Killua. So in this world, the Gon vs. Hisoka rematch may actually happen, and not only that, but in this world, Gon is much more powerful than he becomes in the actual series, because he doesn't stop training and improving, and by the time he gets aboard the Black Whale 1, it's impossible to say just how much he's improved, but it's certainly beyond anything we saw pre-adult Gon. Illumi, of course, also joins the troop for the Hisoka Kill Fest, but with one very painfully minor difference. In the actual series, he takes the number 11 spot, which now belongs to Gon, and so Illumi would need to take on either 6, 9, or 12, being Shalnak, Pakunoda, and Kortopi's numbers. We also now have 3 Zoldyck siblings in the troupe, so there are more Zoldyck siblings working for the Phantom Troupe than for the actual Zoldyck family itself. But are you ready for quite possibly the most massive change now? Kurapika will never board the Black Whale 1, because he was recommended by Leorio, who was only approached because of his election performance, which never happens. So neither Kurapika nor Leorio are aboard the ship. So Prince Wobble dies almost immediately after leaving port, as do likely many other younger princes, because they're being guarded by the squad of Nen users that Kurapika put together, who are no longer there. So there's no one to control the chaos of this war, and things are going to get very out of hand very quickly. In this situation, my bet would be on Sradnik to win the war, and provided the troupe and the Hunter Association can deal with Morena on the lower levels, then he becomes the next king of the Kakin Empire. Then he gets dumped on the new continent, all according to plan, and what happens to the troupe from here is unknown. Because honestly, I'm still not entirely sure what their actual plan is. Even after killing Hisoka and robbing the Kakin Empire, they have no real way of getting back to the human realm, and not a lot of reason to keep traveling to the Dark Continent. I mean, Gon may have some desire to go because it was Jing's desire, and Killua may follow him because that's what pre-Needlepool Killua does, but much like the actual series, events from here are wildly unpredictable. However, the major change is that Gon remains our protagonist, and Kurapika remains in a dark cellar somewhere just staring at the eyes of the Kurta clan. But please tell me in the comments, what do you think happens from here?